Today, our guest is going to talk about codependence recovery for love addicts. So please welcome Sheena Tubbs. Hello there.
Hey, Andy. How are ya?
I'm good. It's great to see you, and I'm so glad that you're willing to do this and hop on and tell everyone your thoughts on this topic. So I want to share a little bit about you first, and then we'll dive into some questions. So Sheena is a licensed professional counselor and a certified sex addiction therapist candidate in Houston, Texas. She specializes in treating women with intimacy disorders, with trauma, sexually compulsive behaviors, or addictions. And she also is trained in some of the leading models for trauma and emotional regulation, such as EMDR and dialectical behavior therapy. She also hosts a really amazing podcast. It's called Love Junkie, focusing on healing and recovering from sexual addictions and codependency. And she also manages the Black Girls Heal website and group, which is a community focused on offering tools for Black women to heal from childhood trauma, unhealthy relationships, and low self-esteem. So you're up to a lot of stuff over there.
Staying busy.
Busy lady. So why don't we start with just hearing your story? How did you get into this line of work, Sheena?
Yeah, so I've been a therapist for about 10 years, and about halfway through my career, I worked at a residential treatment center for co-occurring disorders, so borderline and bipolar and substance abuse addictions. And part of the treatment for these folks was sometimes love addiction or sex addiction. And I remember saying, this is crap. Well, I don't understand why we're doing this, but I kind of half-heartedly would walk people through the steps and talk about it. Then my mother passed away unexpectedly, pretty tragically. And it triggered a huge response in me, sent me to therapy for myself. And lo and behold, my therapist one day said, Sheena, do you think maybe you can go to a meeting for sex addicts? And I was like, his name was Tom. I was like, Tom, I'm not a sex addict. Because I would talk a lot about these really unhealthy and toxic relationships that I continue to be in, and pornography addictions, and of course, codependency in my family relationships. And it kept coming up until I started to cross boundaries and lines that I always said I would never do. And then I learned about it, went to meetings, and then found out, oh, okay, this is real. This is very true, right? And so since then, I've just, throughout my career, I started off being maybe more of a generalist and helping everybody and helping some of the more difficult disorders like borderline and things like that. And then just over time, I've just let my passion focus in on women like me who were battling and are battling things that there really isn't a lot of literature about, that there's a lot of stigma about, there's a lot of misinformation about, and just zeroing in on that to help other women get free. So.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And it is always amazing, right, how we go through our own journeys and then often, right, are inspired to help other people because we've had this experience and, know what's happening and we can share that with others and help them through their journeys. So I love that you're doing that in your work. So let's dive into what codependency is. What does that mean to you?
To me, codependency means an over-reliance of taking care of other people, and that you're not okay unless they're okay, and you're not okay when they're not okay. It's just a lack of intimacy and attachment to yourself.
A lack of intimacy and attachment to yourself. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and an over-reliance on other people to define who you are as well.
So what about love addiction? I know that is a specialty of yours. So what is love addiction and what does this have to do with codependency specifically?
Yeah, so all love addicts are codependent, but not all codependents are love addicts. So a love addict is someone, excuse me, I feel like I have to sneeze, so I apologize if I do it in the middle of talking. A love addict is someone who continually seeks love and affirmation from unavailable partners or unavailable situations. So this could be seeking partners who are maybe in other committed relationships, who are workaholics and not able to give them time and affirmation, who may be avoidant and not be able to be intimate and be vulnerable. But the love addict is looking for affirmation from these unavailable people. It's kind of this self-sabotaging pattern where they're trapped in the cycle. And for someone to be a love addict, they will find that this is persistently the type of their relationship that they're in. A lot of times I talk about this and I give the disclaimer that, you know, most people can talk about being in an unhealthy or toxic relationship. Not everybody, but a lot of people can. You know, that person where it's just so hard for you to let go of, and it's hard for you to put up boundaries. But for a love addict, these are the type of people that they consistently are attracted to, or they are in relationships with people who are trying to be connected to them, and they're the ones who are putting up walls and not really interested in going forward. And also one of the key markers of a love addict is in this pursuer distancer cycle is this extreme depression and withdrawal and pain that happens when you think about or when you attempt to try to create boundaries with them, because this person is kind of like your drug, or the relationship is kind of like your drug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that and honed in on that, because right, it's an addiction. It's a love addiction. So exactly, right. How do you feel when you're in withdrawal from, right, not having that addiction, that person, or setting those boundaries? So
yeah, it's horrible, you know. And like I said, I started off in these residential treatment places with people who had drug addictions, and they would get sober from the drug addiction, and then they would have this untreated sex and love addiction. And so they would get sober, but they would have all these unhealthy relationships. And then when we started to focus on that, they would talk about the pain from withdrawing from love addiction was more painful or as painful as the drug addiction, because really all addictions are just about self-soothing these traumatic wounds, these inner hurts and pain that never got resolved. And so when you take that away and you're just left with yourself, it's excruciating, right? Mm-hmm.